right now, many people are just riveted by this unusual legal circumstance of a criminal murder defendant on the stand. This is in the Murdaugh murder trial about this family, a wealthy lawyer, his son and wife, one of his sons and wife killed. There had been previously a young girl who was killed on the not related to them on the family boat. There's backstory here of ruination of the family finances, of opioid addiction, and now the primary allegation. Also $11 million of theft has been alleged. But Murdaugh, the father of this family, is of the Murdaugh family. He is on the stand right now, and he is being asked about the state's allegation that he murdered at the family hunting kennels his wife and his younger son. Clay, when you see this situation, you've got a father here on trial for a double murder of his own wife and second son. This is not something you generally see. We have not obviously been able to watch the cross-examination yet, but I know enough just from watching Law and Order. You're always told, first of all, a well-advised defendant will not take the stand. Second of all, this is highly risky.
Yeah, look, this story has really gripped much of the nation's attention. And if you haven't been paying attention to it, the fact that Fox News is basically going without commercial break during his testimony, and again, the defense is questioning him right now. His own attorneys are questioning him on the witness stand, and then I would think we will have what may very well be an explosive cross-examination. And I've read a lot about this case because it's South Carolina backcountry. The guy's name is, it looks like it should be pronounced Murdaugh. It's actually pronounced Murdoch. And his family for 3 generations has been essentially the legal force, prosecuting attorneys and whatnot in this entire region of South Carolina, which is very rural, very poor, and is not very connected in a general sense to the outside world. And this story has captivated many people, not only in the United States, but around the globe. And to your point, you almost never see a defendant in a murder trial take the witness stand. Now, this guy is and has been in his career a very skilled attorney. He's probably spent a lot of time in courtrooms in his life. He has been bawling, breaking down in tears during much of this testimony that is focused on the details surrounding when he found the bodies of his wife and his son. And his own elder son has testified on his behalf, but the evidence is obviously very damning. The one thing they haven't really been able to point out, Buck, is why did he do it?
I was going to ask you what the motive is here. I mean, you've been following this trial more closely than I have, but the part of I've been reading about it. I haven't been somebody who's been watching the live shots from the courtroom the way that many across the country. And Fox is going with a live right now. So he is effectively bankrupt. That's what this is all part of the claim, that he's run out of money. He has an opioid addiction, which he has admitted to. He says he lied to police about where he was the night of the murder, which this comes from the detectives I work with, the NYPD. They just say, look for the lie. The moment someone's lying to you, there's a reason. So that's obviously not favorable for Alex Murdaugh's, for Alex Murdaugh in front of this jury, that he's admitted to lying to police about where he was the night of the murder. But killing his wife and son, unless there's a major insurance policy or something, it doesn't seem like motive is clear, which I think would be a problem that, well, obviously that's what the defense is trying to present to the jury. And that seems to be one of their primary points in his favor. Is that there
Yeah,
doesn't
look,
seem to be clear motive.
every case, both the prosecution and the defense have a theory of the case. That is something that you believe is the undergirding foundation upon which you are basing the argument, which is really just a story that you are presenting to the jury. And it's not only, by the way, this. Murdaugh also was caught staging a fake suicide attempt, or a fake murder attempt, I should say. He supposedly hired his cousin to try to kill him, and then claimed that he had that the attempt had failed, and he called the police. And I mean, this has been a total cluster. And the one thing that has not necessarily tied together perfectly, Buck, and you hit on it, is the motive. His life was falling apart, and it seems to be the prosecution's theory of the case that when they realized that he had embezzled $8.5 million. And by the way, let me just take a step back and explain how all this started. His youngest son was on a boat, was drunk, and ran the boat into a bridge support, and his girlfriend died in that incident. There then was a massive lawsuit, wrongful death civil suit, filed against the Murdaugh family, his younger son. And as part of that story, they became aware as this litigation ensued that Murdaugh had stolen millions of dollars from his law firm. Basically, money that he was not entitled to, that he had effectively embezzled. And I'm synthesizing this a little bit. And then as that became apparent, then there is the argument that he decided the way to distract from what was going on in his financial affairs, this is the theory of the prosecution, was that he was going to kill his wife and his son. It doesn't really, to me, add up. And also there's an allegation that a previous maid that worked for them may have been murdered. She fell down the stairs, and they got a multi-million-dollar insurance settlement there. The children of the maid that died, they didn't really seem to understand that there had been any kind of settlement, so he got millions of dollars in life insurance, and he sued his own property insurance. It's really a convoluted story, and there may be people out there who have been following it way closer than us. In fact, I'm sure there are, and many of them may be listening to us while they're also watching and or taping this testimony, because Murdaugh taking the stand is a holy crap moment for people who've been following this case. It was massively popular in the podcast universe. I mean, it spawned an entire series of shows all spiraled out of this.
It feels like this is a desperation move for the defense. I mean, just based on everything that you have laid out here. And I mean, for example, the possibility that there was a murder of an employee and they got the settlement. I mean, just all of these things. The jury hates this person, right? That's clear at this point. Alex Murdaugh he comes across as a detestable person. Maybe some of them would have a particular sympathy just because of he's an addict, which he's come out to say, and people are sympathetic toward addicts. But the other stuff, the stealing and he's not going to be viewed favorably by a jury at all. So given the facts and given the other problem the defense has here is, well, who else did this? Right. I mean, they say the weapons were stolen. The weapons have not been recovered.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought this up, Buck, because the big part here that he's been trying to argue is that initially there was the thought that the son and the mom were murdered by family that was angry over the daughter that died in the boat accident. So it was months between when this murder happened and when they ended up charging Murdaugh, because the argument had been this was revenge for the death of the daughter in the boat. That was what most people thought, and they thought that both Murdaugh and his surviving son were potentially going to be targeted, associated with this as well. So, I mean, this is like a William Faulkner, Gothic Southern novel that has all these twists and all these complicated, shadowy suspects and subterfuge. And so what the heck the jury's going to be able to uncover about all this before all is said and done is a major challenge.
And you're going to see a lot more of this, because right now, obviously the defense is trying to portray a shattered deeply, deeply troubled, apart from the murder of his wife and son, but a shattered individual who, as bad as he may be on some other things, did not do this double murder, right? That's what this all hinges on. You're going to get a prosecution going forward here in cross-examination that is going to tear this guy up. That's going to be, and he's gambling with he's gambling with the rest of his life. Effectively, he's gambling with whether or not he's going to spend the rest of his life in prison with this testimony that he is giving, which is a performance of sorts.
Many of you have been following this case. It's among it has spawned a absolute cavalcade of podcasts and true crime stories and everything else associated with it. And we've got a caller who wanted to weigh in from South Carolina. Let's see, Kip in Charleston, South Carolina. You wanted to mention this case. You've been following it.
Roger that. Greetings, Clay and Buck. Thank you. The Murdaugh family seems to be followed by murders, and I can't give you the exact chronology, but let's go say 4 years ago, there was a young man found deceased out in the bush, run over several times, miles from his vehicle, miles from where he should have been, that had some relationship, schoolmate or whatever, of the Murdaugh children, that the sheriff was never able to tie it together. A year or two later, the Murdaugh family's housekeeper mysteriously falls down a flight of stairs to her death. She's grossly overinsured. That money ended up in Alex Murdaugh's law firm. And then 2 years later, there's the boating accident that claims the life of a 19-year-old girlfriend. And then 2 years from that, we have the double murder of the wife and the son. So the whole murder beginning is almost 8-9 years ago. And they never mention these other two fatalities. They just focus on the son and the daughter, and then the son and the wife, and the boating accident.
Well, the housekeeper.
Thank you for the call.
Thank you so much, Kip from Charleston. The housekeeper situation. I mean, that is, a 9 out of 10 on the suspicious scale, I think we could say.
And Buck, the way that that housekeeper story is tied into the fraud that they uncovered, because there was no suspicion, basically. She fell down the stairs, allegedly, and died, and she was there was a huge insurance payment, and they didn't realize, the surviving heirs of the housekeeper, how much money had been given and paid out in life insurance, because Murdaugh kept the vast majority of that money and gave, I think, like $25,000. I don't remember the exact. It was a rounding error on the millions that he was able to keep over that incident. And this is one of the things, again, what seems to have started all of this unraveling is the death of this girlfriend of the youngest son in a boating accident. And Buck, you were talking about police investigations and everything else. When everyone was in the hospital at that boating accident, Murdaugh, who is an attorney, the father, showed up and made all of the survivors not say a word to police because his son was drunk when he was piloting the boat. And they were trying to figure out, hey, who was actually even driving this boat at the time that it hit the bridge and this girl went flying out of the boat and ended up dying. And so that is where everything began to unravel. But he was trying to rig the investigation into the boat accident, according to reports, from inside of the hospital, immediately rushing to the survivors' bedsides and telling them, don't talk to the police at all. We're getting you attorneys. Don't be involved in any way in participating in this investigation. But that is what then led to the alleged embezzlement being uncovered and everything sort of unraveling in the Murdaugh family, and has led to finally, allegedly, the murder of both of the mom and the son by Murdaugh himself.